Good evening. Welcome to our program, Women to Women. We're here tonight with two very special ladies that I'm going to introduce you to in just a few moments. But first, let's thank our sponsors. Villa Basque Deli Cafe, home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, right here in Carson City. And that chorizo is delicious. We'd also like to thank Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils and balsamic vinegar, as well as carsonnow.org. It's the 24/7 place to go. When you want to know what's going on here in the capital, Carson City, you go to carsonnow.org. So let's thank two very special ladies, IrmaWilson and DonnaElliott, for being with us tonight. And they have a program that I'm going to ask them to really get into and discuss that can affect so many of us personally as well as our families. But let's find out a little bit more about them personally. Donna, where are you from originally?
I was born in California, San Francisco. Grew up at Angwin, California, which is close to St. Helena and Napa Valley. And then moved to Oregon.
Okay. As a child or as a young adult?
About 13, I moved to Oregon.
And sometimes at that particular age, those are really sensitive middle school years, right before you get into high school. Did you have any disillusions about leaving the Napa Valley and moving into another state entirely?
It was a new beginning. I was looking forward to it in some ways.
Right.
I love adventure.
Oh, yes, so. I think most kids do. Did you have brothers and sisters that went with you?
2 sisters and 1 brother.
All right. Are you the littlest one, the middle one, the oldest?
I am the second.
The second.
Yes.
Okay, not quite in command, but not a baby either, all right?
Right.
And Irma, how about you? Where did you grow up?
In the Netherlands, Amersfoort.
Okay. That means what in terms of background and history, culture? When you grew up in the Netherlands, what is it like as a youngster? Is it very traditional?
At that time, it was very traditional.
Okay. Are we talking about Amsterdam?
I was about 45 kilometers south east of Amsterdam.
All right. All right.
And at that time, I thought it was a long ways off, and now it's not.
It's not. It's not.
No.
How did you make your way to the United States?
I traveled quite a lot after I first got married.
Okay.
And then I ended up in England, where I was working in a healthcare facility.
Okay. And I hear a bit of a British accent.
Yeah, I lived there for 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's where I met my husband. And after we were acquainted with each other, dated each other, then after 2 years, we got married. And then I moved here to Carson City, where I have been now for 28 years.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's really coming to a quite different culture.
A total, a culture shock.
I can identify with that, okay, going from a Western country like the United States into the Middle East, 14th century culture shock. Okay?
Yeah.
So how did both of you women meet?
I moved to Nevada 5 years ago, and that's where I met Irma.
Okay, okay.
And we attend the same church. So we became friends and discovered that we have an interest, which we'll be talking about later, that was mutual.
Okay, Donna, when you meet someone such as Irma, who really represents not only a different culture, but a different part of the world, so to speak. And there are very special qualities that if we open our eyes and our ears to those other nations of the world, they have such a great perspective that we here in the West, of course, the Netherlands is part of the Western Hemisphere, but what I'm saying is, what did you detect or pick up on in terms of Irma's values, her thoughts, her perceptions about people when you initially got to know her?
I was intrigued, first of all, by her background.
And her accent.
I loved her story, and different nationalities are very interesting to me. I love people and just getting to know where they come from. Okay,
when you say that you were intrigued by her background, that can mean a lot of things. Irma was probably, I had a good neighbor back in New York who was Dutch, okay? And she came from Holland. And she grew up during World War II when it was very risky to take in the Jews from Germany that were trying to escape. And she had that kind of a background and history behind her. What kind of a background and history did you find in Irma that drew you to her?
just the fact that she was from another country and had traveled in the world, which I haven't done. And that part was intriguing, and she's a very nice person.
Okay.
She's a good friend.
Okay. And Irma, let me ask you, like myself, there's been a lot of travel in our lives. And that does something that only, I guess, that kind of adventure, that kind of excursion can accomplish in us. It changes us as people, doesn't it?
It does.
And some of the changes that you underwent, you're not the same Irma today as you were 20 or 25 years ago.
Absolutely not.
What did the travel do for you that has made a difference with what you do now?
You learn all the different cultures. I've lived in South Africa, in England, Holland, of course, Saudi Arabia, Iran.
Me too.
Yeah.
Tehran.
Tehran.
Yes.
Yeah. So what you learn is to accept people and their cultures for what they are, without criticizing, what they're doing, because that's their culture, and we accept it, especially when you live in their country.
Right. We are the guests in their country.
We are the guests in the country.
And that's sometimes a hard thing. I saw on several occasions where the arrogance of the American was embarrassing to me.
Yeah.
They came with expectations that wherever they were going to be living, in this case it was in Iran many years ago, okay, in the early and mid-70s, when the Shah was still the benevolent dictator, okay?
At the same time I was there.
All right. And I saw Americans, English-speaking peoples, not from England, nor from France, nor from Germany, etc., but specifically Americans who did not accept that culture for what it was and what it could be for them as a tremendous asset. And they left an impression upon me as well as upon the other Iranians who were serving them as rather selfish people, demanding people, unaccepting of what they were able to provide for them as not being sufficient or enough.
Yeah.
And I think, whether we like it or not, we're ambassadors wherever we go.
Right.
We represent not only who we are, but where we come from.
Where we come from, the country where we came from.
So when you came to Nevada, Carson City, directly from England,
Yes.
what was the culture shock all about?
Dry, brown, the culture, the history.
Yes.
Here you talk about 200 years and it's old. In Europe, it's not very old. So those things, when you live in Holland, and the first time I left there I was 20, you're surrounded by water. I miss that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But now I love the mountains. So you replace that.
If we give the opportunity or the chance to our psyches, to appreciate the differences and what those differences can generate in us and make us see things differently, it becomes a place of beauty.
Absolutely. There's beauty everywhere.
Beauty everywhere.
Open your eyes and you see the beauty.
Yes. And I think traveling also helped with that. Some people look at it as torture, change. They don't like it. Others tend to say, wow, look at all they accomplish with either what is around them or what little they have, but it's an abundance because they make it do so well. All right. So you met probably about 5 years ago?
Yes.
All right. And as we get into this partnership that you have, how did you decide to come together and work together on this clinic for depression?
We, in our conversation, both ended up talking about how we had discovered it, I believe. And we thought it would be wonderful to put on a depression recovery seminar here because there are so many people in need of that. And it was an outreach through our church.
Okay.
It's very integral with our faith to reach out to people as Jesus did. And we thought it would be a good thing to do together.
All right. Now, there must be some kind of special training that you go through. You have some basic skills that are there, which is an empathy for all of us who have real battles with depression.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to be trained very carefully. Is it a clinical training that you receive? How do you approach this clinic of depression for those of us who may need it?
Well, I have worked before I stopped working about in August, I believe, at a facility, behavioral health services, right here in Carson City. And I worked with people with mental health issues as well as drug and alcohol.
Okay.
Rehab. And so I've been working with them, those people, for quite a long time.
How many years would you?
12 years.
Okay.
And so also, this program does not necessarily deal with medication.
Okay.
Well, in the hospital, of course, you do.
Right.
And so, we're not medical, but we're trying to help the people through lifestyle.
All right.
To feel better, to get better, and get to the root of the problem. And Donna and I feel kind of the same way about that and that approach.
Okay, so Donna, let me ask you, where does your background or experience help out with what you're doing now in the clinic?
My interest started when I was only a child, actually, because of family members that had, it was my mother first, who came down with a very rare and terrible disease, actually, called Huntington's disease.
Yes.
And it affects the mind. And so at that age, I felt very helpless, not knowing what you could do to help, not knowing what caused it. And back then, they really didn't have a lot of information, which they have learned a lot in the following years.
They have. Now, can you help our viewing audience understand a little bit more about Huntington's disease? As opposed to, there's Parkinson's disease, there are different forms of dementia, etc. In particular, what is Huntington's disease?
Huntington's disease is hereditary, first of all, and because my mother had it, all of us as her children had 50-50 chance of becoming, having onset of that disease at maybe about the age 30. And so we had this to maybe dread or wonder about or find out about all those years.
Right.
But in that time, I became first withdrawn and then a person who really wanted to study and find out what it was all about. The Huntington's disease not only has a depression side, which is involved with the deterioration of the brain, but also it is seen in the motor skills where you lose complete control of all motor function.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but what I hear you saying, Huntington's disease is genetic.
It is.
It runs in families, okay? And the onset of it can be earlier than what anybody even anticipated, as early as 30.
Yes.
In terms of what your mother
Yes, and my brother also had onset around age 30, and his son was almost juvenile onset, which he was about 25, my nephew.
Okay, so when we come back to the second half, I would like both of you to help us understand the different types of personalities and or depressions that you work with. There's the segment of Huntington's disease, but what else do you also see in lifestyles or behaviors that can lead to chronic depression and maybe in terms of needing clinical help? We'll come back to that in just a few moments, okay? Don't go away. This proves to be a very learning, knowledgeable piece of information that we all need to be more familiar with. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Stephen Lincoln with CarsonCityHomes.com, Carson City's original online real estate resource.
At CarsonCityHomes.com, you get effective and easy-to-use tools to help you select your next home today. With our easy-to-use website, you can search listings throughout Northern Nevada and narrow the results by selecting every facet, quirk, and quality you desire. Visit CarsonCityHomes.com.
Apex SCF provides cutting-edge, hands-on training that effectively addresses today's threats of violence.
The Apex Stay Alive course teaches proven methods for personal protection and attack countermeasures that can be applied in any environment. In your home, at the workplace, or on campus, Apex will teach you the necessary skills to stay alive, including how to recognize and react to an active shooter scenario.
If you knew you had to fight for your life tomorrow, would you train today? Contact us now to sign up for a class in your region.
Welcome back to the second portion of our program, Women to Women. We're here with Irma and with Donna, and we are really engaged in a conversation that probably affects every single one of our lives at some time or other. But before we get back into this clinical discussion of depression, I'd like to thank the sponsors of the second half of our show. Dr. Kent Gabriel, noted plastic surgeon right here in Carson City. Dr. Gabriel's specialty is microsurgery of the hands. We'd also like to thank the Horseshoe Club in downtown, the historic district of Carson City. If you're thinking about a light breakfast or a light lunch, why not stop in and visit the Horseshoe Club and become a part of their newly renovated dining room? And we also like to thank Bank of the West, that customer service-oriented bank right here in Carson City. When you walk in, Bank of the West already knows your name. So let's return to Irma and to Donna. Okay, ladies. This is a really serious subject for so many of us, regardless of where we live. And it's encouraging to know that we have a program right here in Carson City that can help address some of those issues. All right, we were talking about the experience that you both have in dealing with clinical depression. And Donna, you had brought up Huntington's disease, okay, that your mother and another family member came to be identified with. Any other experiences that are really close to home that you have experienced and gone through, and you know what it means to need help in some of these areas?
Yes, with my first marriage, I had a husband who ended up having, we discovered bipolar. Okay. For many years, we didn't know what it was.
Yes.
And then with all the symptoms he had, and the fact that two of our children ended up having bipolar, just drove me to really delve into finding out how to help people with depression.
Yes, and those bipolar diagnoses, you know, they can swing from this pendulum to the end and back to this one. It's devastating. It's devastating to them and to their family who love them. And it can also lead to taking very drastic measures sometimes with their lives. All right, so let's go back to what is it that you're trying to accomplish with the clinical depression that you're serving? Okay, you have the years of experience behind you. You intimately know that this disease, these diseases represent such a large population. Besides what you've discussed, Donna, Irma, are there other areas of depression that you take a look at? And you had mentioned behavioral depression, lifestyle depression. What do you mean by that?
Lifestyle, the type of life people live, the way they look at life, incidents that happen in their life, for instance, a spouse dying, divorce,
right,
sickness in the family, or just seasonal depression. When you don't get enough light, for instance, like the winter, that can cause depression.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah, and so
and
a lot of people don't really realize that it is depression.
They mistake it for what?
They probably think, well, it's just me. I'll get over it. I feel miserable, but it may go away. And usually it doesn't unless it is addressed.
Okay, so sometimes we are our own worst enemy. We try to con ourselves that there's really nothing wrong. It's just something perhaps that I'm going through right now. And yet, if I am one of those people, what are sometimes the symptoms that I would need to pay attention to? Coming to the recognition that I need help. Is my diet affected? Is my sleep affected? Are my friendships, my relationships affected? How do I know when I need help?
All those things. A person that has depression usually sleeps a lot more. loses the courage, the will to keep on going,
Okay.
kind of gives up,
All right.
also starts developing pains and aches that may actually be related to depression.
All right. So you're saying that depression, that really down, blue, funky type of thinking, behavior, causes pain.
It could.
It could.
It could cause pain, yes.
All right. So if I need help, I'm starting to recognize I'm not getting over this. This is going on far longer than I want it to. Where can I come for help? If I come to your clinic, okay, how will I be treated? What do I expect to receive? When I walk in those doors, what's going to happen?
Well, we first of all start talking to the people. Then we have a video that we give them to watch on the screen from Dr. Neil Nedley. We watch that. They have a workbook to work through. We're very much also into diet.
Okay,
Diet is a big part of recovery.
Do I have a partnership with anybody to help me? Do I have a mentor? Do I have somebody I can talk to?
The facilitators. We are the facilitators.
Okay.
So for you watch Dr. Neil Nedley, who put this program together, and Donna and I are the facilitators. We talk to the people. We have a group, but we also talk individually. And then by them opening up, because it is a safe environment,
It's a confidential environment?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We never mention the names or anything to anybody. So they can actually start talking about what is really bothering them.
Right.
As I said, we pay attention to exercises, diets, where they are now. We're not necessarily going back 20 years.
Right, but where they are right now.
Where they are right now, and that's what we try to focus on. So how can we move on from now? How can we improve some of the issues that are really bothering them?
And I also hear you saying that when we have depressions of various magnitudes, background experiences, we often tend to bury them deep down inside. And I've experienced that.
Yeah.
And when someone was able to bring that up and out of me, wow.
Yeah.
I started to live differently.
Yeah.
And I started to think differently. And I was no longer holding on to that fear that had a bigger control of my life than what I'd ever imagined. Yes, I can identify with some of what you're saying.
And you know what is also very helpful in that is when a person then writes a letter to that person who may have injured them, or to the incident or whatever, write a letter and just like freestyle writing, just write what comes up in your mind.
Get it out.
Get it all out.
Yes.
That's very helpful.
Yes.
Sometimes those people want to share that letter, otherwise other ones don't.
Right.
That's an individual choice they make.
How long has this program been in existence here in Carson City?
This is the first time here in Carson City that we have presented it.
All right.
But it has been in existence for at least 10 years. And
All right.
Dr. Neil Nedley has a clinic in Oklahoma, as
All
well
right.
as right up here at Weimar, California,
All right.
and where he has a live-in program. But it's much more costly to do a live-in program. We
All
have
right. So we're not talking about something that's just a fly-by-night
No.
presentation.
Absolutely.
This has been researched and studied and found to be significantly positive in the lives of
Yes.
many of these people.
Yeah, very beneficial.
And it is, as we do the program, it is being recorded to know how much success they have with the program. And they found that this program is very successful because of all the aspects that we address.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. No.
You learn to identify 10 hit categories that cause depression, and you also learn how to change those in your life, the ones that can be changed. There are some that cannot, such as genetic, but there are many that can.
All right.
And it's very interesting.
Well, I know that as we speak, up on the screen is going to be a telephone number and an address, et cetera, for our viewing audience. Now, when you say there are some things that just can't be changed, And yet, at the same time, this is a program that tends to shy away or stay away from medicine. So we're talking about verbal therapy, we're talking about, are we talking about psychotherapy too, if we don't want to use medication to help these clients?
We're thinking about cognitive behavioral therapy.
Which means
now,
what?
CBT.
That is a way of thinking and rethinking. We have in our program something that we try to do, and that is not to say anything negative for 14 days. And we have to go back to the beginning and start over if we mess up. So it's something that helps us, it helps us to cognitively think about what is coming out of our mouths, because that often affects how we feel. And so it's a feeling of learning gratitude. And of course, with depression, you oftentimes just can't think anything positive. You're so low. And so we work on all the different aspects of depression, and then try and do this as well. The cognitive behavioral therapy is different than what you'll find in traditional therapy.
All right, different, and okay, can you simplify this for me and for the viewing audience? What are the major differences between what we've taken for granted to be normal therapy as opposed to cognitive therapy? All right, one I'm catching on to, and I'm a simple person, okay, so I need some simple explanation, is thinking positive. Okay, forget the negative. Don't even let it come out of your mouth for 14 days. Otherwise, we need to go back and start over again, okay? And that's a toughie for anybody.
It is.
Yeah, some people don't make it even past the first hour.
And I can identify with that.
And they have workbooks, the people that are going through the program, to where they are reading all these good things, and they have to come together and talk about it and
they come together with, okay, so there's group interaction.
Therapy, yes.
Yes.
Okay, there's interaction between you as a facilitator and an individual, but then you bring them back as a group.
As a group.
Okay, and as a group, what do you hear them saying?
They talk about how they're able to exercise now or get up out of bed without feeling so down. They talk about what their progress is,
right,
and how much of the program they're following. And definitely with most programs, if you follow really well and do everything that it requires, which is a lot in this program, you will do a lot better.
Okay, so financially, we're saying to come to a program like this is far less expensive than an in-house program.
We charge $145 per person.
All right.
For that, they get the main book, the workbook, watching the DVD, Book of Psalms, some other literature that is related to.
So there's a very strong spiritual component involved here too.
Yeah.
All right, and that's an important part of any one of us. Okay,
Absolutely.
when we come to recognize that. All right, I want to say
it doesn't mean that you have to be a Christian and that anybody can come.
Exactly.
But we have
a
spiritual.
All right, well, you've opened up a whole new door for a lot of us to think about for sure. And I want to say thank you so much, Irma, for being our guest. Thank you, Donna, for being a part of this program. And I hope that we have shared information that really sticks in our minds, because it can make a difference for us personally as well as for so many of our family members and personal friends. In the meantime, take care, have a good evening, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Good night.